Hey friends, welcome back to another Before You Read lecture. Our exploration of friendship in the Bible, friendship as a theme or a topic or an idea in the Bible, continues with this video lecture. And this video lecture is about Job and his friends, obviously from the book of Job. And what I want to do in this chapter, or in this Before You Read lecture, is provide a brief reminder, recap of the book of Job as a whole. And, I won't do much in that. I'll just scratch the surface. But a reminder of sort of what Job is like and what Job is doing. And then I want to say a little bit about our reading assignment today and how that reading assignment for this week relates to the larger book of Job. And then I want us to think through some questions together that might sort of garner and encourage our reading of this section of Job. So to begin, the book of Job. Typically, the book of Job is associated with the wisdom literature. The wisdom literature includes things like Proverbs, but also Ecclesiastes, and of course the wisdom of Solomon and the wisdom of Ben Sira would be in that group. But one of the ways that a professor of mine from grad school described Job is that Job is the opposite of normal wisdom. Normal wisdom is the wisdom of Proverbs. It's 9 out of 10 dentists agree sort of wisdom. It's commonsensical, it's reflective, it's sort of observe the world and you'll learn wisdom, right? Pay attention, honor the traditions you've received and you will find wisdom and you'll find the good life. And part of that wisdom tradition, and we also see this in Deuteronomy and in the books of Kings, is basically, good things happen to good people, and bad things happen to bad people. So you want to have a good life, you want to be blessed, follow Torah and follow the ways of God. That's again, 9 out of 10 doctors agree, 9 out of 10 scribes agree that is the way to the good life. That's normal wisdom, according to Proverbs. The book of Job is abnormal wisdom or other wisdom, or even we might say a protest wisdom. It offers us another perspective with the book of Proverbs. And I think it's really important, it's really helpful for us to think of that sort of simple perspective of Proverbs and of Deuteronomy as we read the book of Job. Because I think the book of Job as a whole is wrestling with the predictability of life, about the problem of evil and human suffering. And I think it says that the answers of Deuteronomy, the answers of Proverbs, don't go far enough. They're inadequate to the questions and the experiences that humans have. The book of Job has been described by Carol Newsom as a polyphonic text, a multiple sounding text. And this is primarily about, there's a narrative frame in chapters 1 and 2, and then in chapter 42, where the language is that of a story, even a fairy tale. Once upon a time, there was a man named Job. And it starts like that in chapters 1 through 2, and it returns to that in chapter 42. But the material in the middle is very different. It's highly poetic, it's stylized. And it consists of a number of different conversations that Job has with his friends, and then eventually that Job has with God near the end of the book. And these can be described as wisdom dialogues, as an ongoing pursuit of wisdom, of understanding the world, of understanding the nature of human suffering and even God's role in it. And so it's a polyvalent text, both because of the narrative frames that sort of embed these wisdom traditions, but also, or these wisdom dialogues, but it's also polyvalent because the wisdom dialogues themselves are not coherent. Even some of the speeches, the individual speeches of one of Job's friends, isn't consistent all the way through. And one of the things to note about these conversations, especially with Job and his friends, is things escalate. We're only going to read the first 8 chapters of Job, but things go from, his friends assume that Job is mostly innocent and, they mourn with him. But by the end of their conversation, both Job and his friends have sort of become more entrenched. Job's friends are beginning to think that, in fact, that probably Job did something to deserve the punishment or deserve the ill fortune that he experiences in chapters 1 and 2. And so that's Job. Job is wrestling with the proverbial, the traditional, the predictable wisdom that we find elsewhere in the Bible. And it's using the story of Job and this back and forth conversation with Job's friends and Job to at least re-examine that traditional wisdom perspective. Carol Newsom says that if we were to think about this book of Job, it's kind of like avant-garde theater, that we have all of this happening at the same time in the stage, and that we're invited as readers to try to deal with it as a complete work of art. To not think that the story ends in chapter 2, or that we get the resolution in chapter 42, but to see it all, to see the messiness of the debate with the friends and everything as the whole work of art. For our reading together, I've invited you to read Job chapters 1 through 8 and then chapter 42, the end of the story. And again, I've mentioned this already, that chapters 1 through 2 are the narrative frame, and then 42 is the sort of resolution to that frame. We can think of them as bookends or as a framing unit. And I think many of you will be familiar with the basics of chapters 1 through 2. Job is a righteous man. Job is also a rich and prosperous man, has a great family, good wife, lots of livestock. He's very religious. He's pietistic. And in chapter 2, we see this challenge that one of God's messengers, one of the members of the divine council named Satan, the adversary, comes to God and says, "You know what? This Job person, he probably only blesses you because his life is so good. I bet if you take away those blessings, he's going to curse you." And so there's this great heavenly wager, and Job's life gets turned upside down, loss and destruction, and everything. And then in chapter 3 is when we begin this wisdom dialogue. We begin these conversations with the friends, and the feel in the Hebrew, and as you'll see in an English translation, is very different. It feels different. It's a different genre of literature, and that will last from chapter 3 all the way to chapter 41. Then in chapters 4 through 5, we hear the first time from Job's friends, from Eliphaz, his friend. And then in Job 6 through 7, Job again responds to Eliphaz. And you know, what I love to talk with you all about is do they hear each other? Do they talk past each other? What's the nature of their conversation? What's going on there? In Job chapter 8, we get to hear from Bildad. And this cycle of Job's friends talking and Job responding, and it's sort of dialogical conversation happens all the way through chapter 37. And then in chapter 38 through 41, God finally speaks, famously speaks to Job from a whirlwind. And again, would love to have weeks to study Job with you all, but just for this 1 week, we'll focus in on those portions. That's the overview. And I want to give you one specific question for our assignment for Job, and then I'll revisit our 3 traditional questions. And that is, I want you to read these chapters as models of friendship. Okay, so if Job and his friends have a model friendship, or if it's modeling or teaching us something about friendship, what does it say are the strengths of friendship, or what are the strengths of the friendship among the friends as you see them? And perhaps what are the weaknesses or the areas of growth, we might say, as well. Again, this is another narrative, or at least narrative-like piece of the Bible. And so we can think about these as examples of friendship, and we can sort of poke and prod with them in that way. Now, to return to our 3 traditional questions, right? The first question is, what is friendship, or what is a friend like, right? The description. The second would be, what is the benefit, what is the function of friendship or a friend? And then the third question is, how, if at all, does God relate to the friendship that we see in Job chapter 1 through 8? Job 3 through 8. And then the prompt that you would consider is, according to Job, friendship is blank. And fill in that blank with a sentence or 2 based on your reading of Job. Well, I think that covers some ground for the book of Job. Clearly not everything. We've just scratched the surface. But I am very confident that we'll have lots to talk about as Job and his friends interact with each other around this really terrible and traumatic experience that Job has just lived through. And we'll ask the question, what does that say about friendship? What can friendship survive such a crisis? So, lots to talk about. Look forward to hearing from you. For now, happy reading.